Mashile,
Morning, Chair.
how are you?
I'm good in yourself, Chairperson.
Good.
Yes.
The time is exactly 9 o'clock. Can we start?
Yes, Chair, we can start.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody on the platform. Welcome to this meeting of the Standing Committee on Appropriation with the National Treasury. Good morning, National Treasury. Madi Jeng and your team. The minister presented a budget last week, and amongst the bills that he presented was the Division of Revenue Bill, the Second Adjustment Appropriation Bill, and the Gold and Foreign Exchange Contingency Reserve Account Defrayal Amendment Bill. So as it happens, once the bills are presented to Parliament, these bills, they are then referred to the Standing Committee on Appropriations. So we're going to have that engagement with the National Treasury, and that will allow members of the committee to engage with the presentation, seek clarifications, make observations, and ask questions. So you're all welcome. But before I proceed, National Treasury, there is a continuing concern that documents don't reach us on time, or says that documents which came yesterday, and that makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for the members and the research teams of the committee to deal with to read the documents. With the little time that were left in this administration, I think we still need to improve on that. But even more important, when you start with the next administration, it's an area that you'll have to look into. So you're all welcome. Members of the media, all members, welcome to you. Our support staff, members of the public, thank you very much. Just to remind you that our preference is that people should show their faces when they speak, not unless there is a problem of connectivity, which you'll communicate to me. Let's hit the road. There are 3 bills, and let's say you have the whole hour, National Treasury, to present, and then after that, you'll only bring back the meeting to me at the time now. Let's say at 5 minutes past 10. Thank you. Madi Jeng, I'm sure you're starting.
Sorry for interruption, Chair. Sorry for that. For record's sake, we don't have any apologies at the moment. We haven't received any apologies. That's an item on the agenda.
Oh, thank you for that. Let's note that. But just keep on checking whether you don't receive any apologies.
Yes.
The meeting proceeds.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson, I'm not sure whether my camera is working. I can't see myself.
We can see you very clearly.
Okay. I can't see myself at all. Okay. Good morning, Chairperson, and all members of the committee, and everyone on the platform. So, as you have indicated, so we want to apologize again for the delays in some of the documents. We definitely will have to improve, Honorable Chair, on this one. So there is a 3 set of inputs that have been requested to brief this committee. The first one being on the Division of Revenue Bill 2024, which we will lead from where I sit. And then we have got the inputs on adjustment appropriation, which Dr. Modise will lead. And then the inputs on GFECRA, which Mrs. Lechete will lead. So we will start with the Division of Revenue bill. So I do have Wendy, who will lead the team to take us through the presentation. And the presentation basically covers 4 areas, which is, we'll give you an overview on the division of revenue between the 3 spheres, and then we'll focus on the provincial government fiscal framework in terms of the allocations, and then on the local government. And then we will highlight some of the clauses, some of the changes or amendments that we are making on some of the clauses, which are not really major, and the schedules of the bill. So we are also reflecting here that the additional information which we are attaching on the responses of FFC, which in details are given in Annexure W of the Division of Revenue Bill, but also the responses of the committee on the recommendations, which are detailed on Annexure A of the budget review. So I will hand over to Wendy to lead us with the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I will take you through parts of the presentation, and then we'll also focus on the provincial and the local and the division of revenue clauses. But let's first start with the division of revenue and how that is put together. And what is quite important is that if you look at the furthest right-hand column, and let me start at the bottom, it indicates the percentage increases through the respective grants that go to provinces and to municipalities, and then also indicate the allocations that's going to national government, and the increases over the medium-term expenditure framework. So if you look at the local government one, it goes up with 5.2%, and you could see it's much higher than the increase to provinces, that's at 3.8%, and the national departments that increase at 2.6%. So local government allocations still grow the highest compared, and then followed by provinces, and local government grows the least. And then also what is quite important to note, if you look at the local government side, equitable shares grow the fastest, then followed by the sharing of the general fuel levy, which is an allocation that replaces the REC levies that used to go to metropolitan municipalities. It's now replaced with the sharing of the general fuel levy, followed with conditional grants. In terms of provinces, the equitable share and the conditional grants nearly grow at the same rate. And then if you look at national government, there's a slight increase in the indirect grant to provinces and a slight decrease in the indirect transfers to local government. Next slide, please. This is a very important slide because the issue is always raised, why is local government only receiving just under 10% of the division of revenue? And currently, in terms of the 2024-25 division of revenue, they target to receive 9.7, and it grows over the medium term to be slightly higher than that. And then provinces got 41.7%, and national is receiving 48.5%. But if you take the own revenue abilities into account, for example, local government can collect revenues through property rates, also through surcharges on municipal services. Provinces generally get their revenues for vehicle licensing fees. If you take that ability into account, then you could see the share shifts quite a bit. We use 2022-23 numbers, but the local government share is then 28%, provinces decline to 33%, and national shares 39%. So this shows a true reflection of if you take own revenues also into account. Thanks. Next slide. Can I then hand over to Bongani that will take you through the provincial allocation, Dr. Pakis that will take you through the local government allocations, and then it will be back to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy. Good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members of the committee, colleagues, and everyone on the platform. I'll be taking you through the provincial transfers. On this slide, what we're showing the amounts that will be transferred to provinces in the 2024-25 financial year. So provinces will receive a total of about 729 billion. And this constitutes about 97% of their total budget, given that in terms of their ability to raise revenue, on average, they raise about 3%. And as Wendy has indicated, in terms of the provincial equitable share, it's growing over the MTEF at an average annual growth rate of 3.9%, going from about 600 billion to about 656. And then the conditional grants are also growing at 3.7% from about 129 billion to 135 billion. And just to indicate that for this budget, they were given what was announced during the MTBPS, that the fiscus is constrained due to lower than expected revenue collection. There has been a combination of additions and reductions, and mainly the additions that have been made to this budget are for the wage agreement, the 2023 wage agreement. Next slide, please. So in terms of this slide, what we are showing is that as it is well known that towards the end of 2023, Statistics South Africa released the census, the 2022 census. However, we want to make the committee aware that the current provincial equitable share has not been updated with the recently released census data. This is because for us to be able to update using that data, it has to be disaggregated at a level where we require the data. So at this point in time, that data is not available. And to a large extent, we have used data that we used in the 2023 budget, given that we had, for example, the 2022 media population estimates. But in the next slide, please, we'll show you the data that we're able to update using the recent data that is available. Next slide. So in terms of here we're showing the 6 components of the provincial equitable share. And in terms of the data that we were able to update, for example, we were able to update the enrollment data, visits to health facilities, and then the general household survey. This data we're able to update. However, the other data that we use to updating the provincial equitable share is the same as the data that was used in the 2023. And as we have mentioned before, for the regional GDP, Stats SA is currently in the process of sort of reviewing the way of calculating that, and the most recent data for a couple of years has been the 2019 data. So even there is no update. Next slide, please. So here what we are showing are the changes to the provincial equitable share. As indicated, that given the constrained fiscal environment that we are facing, there had to be reductions that were made across all the 3 spheres of government. And in terms of the reductions that were made to the provincial equitable share, it was in the region of about 64 billion, and that was shown. And however, there has always been additions and reprioritization that was made. So during the MTBPS, it was indicated that there was an addition of about 68 billion that was made for the carry-through cost. And this follows the additions that were made during the MTBPS for the in-year of the 2023-24, where funding was added for the cost of the 2023 wage agreement. However, since then, about 3.9 billion has been shifted to conditional grants that have the COE component for both education and health. And this is to ensure that people that are paid in those conditional grants also receive the money. And then there is a second edition that was made in the provincial equitable share, which is about 37.3 billion, which was made after the MTBPS. And this was mainly also for the carry-through cost of the 2023 wage agreement. And this was mainly for education and health. Next slide. And here, what we are showing are the changes to the provincial conditional grants. They also experienced a reduction of about 26.8 billion over the MTEF. However, there were also reprioritizations that were made within the conditional grants. So in the 2023 budget, additional funding was added to the ECD grant. And this was for the pilot for the results-based and then the nutrition program. However, that money was unallocated in the conditional grant. And during the 2023, there were discussions as to how best that money can be used. And then through those consultations, it was determined that this fund should be moved to the budget of the National Department for it to pilot, for it to implement this pilot. This is because for the results-based program, what is going to happen is that there's going to be a co-funding by the private sector. So they need to sort of determine exactly how that is going to work. And then for the ECD nutrition pilot, it goes beyond alleviation of hunger, whereby also for that, there needs to be coordination and flexibility around how this is implemented, which the grant framework may not necessarily cater for. And just to indicate, no allocation of any province was affected by this shift. And then in terms of the oncology funding, mostly is funded from the NTSG and the provincial equitable share. However, there was funding that was in the NHI grant. And to ensure that the pot of funding for this oncology is located in one place, about 737 million was moved from the NHI to the NTSG. And also there was a measure of two components, as we are in the process of reviewing the conditional grants and trying to consolidate, whereby the non-person and person components were meshed to form a new health systems component. And this is within the NHI indirect grant. And then through the BFI, there was a provisional funding that has been made for the Western Cape Rapid School Building Program. However, this funding is conditional on the Department of Education within the Western Cape meeting certain conditions that have been put forward. If it does meet those conditions, then funding will flow through the 2024 adjustment budget. Next slide, please. So this slide basically summarizes everything that I have presented, whereby if we are looking at the changes over the MTEF, we are seeing that in terms of the additions, this is made for the carry-through cost. There was an additional about 105 billion that was added to both the conditional grants and the provincial equitable share. And then the net effect of this in the equitable share was about 40 billion addition. However, when we take into account the reductions that were made to the conditional grant, the net effect is about 19 billion over the MTEF. Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. I'll hand over to Letsepa Pakis.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. I will be taking you through the local government side of things. So I think Honorable Chair has already been indicated about the share of local government from the nationally raised revenue is 9.8% over the MTF period, owing to the many abilities that are afforded to local government to then raise their revenues. We're quite pleased, Honorable Chair and members, that we still have healthy growth in terms of the local government allocations with conditional grants growing slightly lower than the equitable share, which is growing at 6.1%. But we're also pleased that the general fuel levy is also growing quite healthily. We just want to draw the honorable members to a few areas. One of the areas, I think it's looking at the equitable share, the amount that has been allocated, over the MTF, which is really the largest share that goes to local government. There's also conditional grant. If you're looking at conditional grants, you will see that we've allocated 53 billion in 24-25 financial year, which then together with the other unconditional grants then amounts to 177.44 billion rand. So let's also look at the local government equitable share. You will see that they are in the main three components. So the free basic services component, which is the biggest component of them all, which is allocated 76.1 billion. So this goes to fund really the provision of basic services to all the 257 municipalities, and we have updated the data that we use to update the formula to take into account, the cost pressures. As Bongani has indicated, State SA has not made available the census data, which has the income and expenditure. So a decision has been taken through the intergovernmental forums to then not update the household numbers. So those stay at 2023 budget. But what is quite important is that we have updated bulk quota with 10.8%, which is really the average water board increases that have been shared with us. In terms of the electricity, bulk electricity, which is an area that has really put some financial strain, especially on municipalities over the past few years. Again, using the multi-year price determination there, we've been able to update the cost factor there by 12.7%. And then other areas have been updated with the 2023 MTBBS CPI projections in terms of those costs like sanitation and refuse removal. This then, honorable members, has allowed us to fully fund the provision of basic services to all the 11.2 million poor households, which is something that has been greatly appreciated. Given the amount of pressure that the national fiscus is under. We have also been able to then ensure that there is proper capacitation for the less affluent areas in terms of the municipalities through the other components of the equitable share, where we're still allocating 6.9 billion in terms of the institutional component, which helps municipalities build a fit-for-purpose administration, which will then help them to deliver the services, but also some of the community services are being provided for through the community services component, where 10.4 billion is going towards that. It's quite important, especially because the honorable members would know this already, but maybe for the members of the public, that the two components, which is the institutional and the community services, really go to the need of the municipalities. So your metros in the main do not receive that component except for one metro, which is Buffalo City. And then honorable members would remember that when we presented before due after MTPPS, there were some cuts that were made, especially on the fuel levy sharing with metros, which amounted to 5.1 billion. So we're really glad that that has been reversed. There were also some other cuts that were made in some programs, for instance, at the INEP for municipalities, the disaster response, as well as the municipal systems improvement grant, which have also been revised down. But to be able to do that, we have had to make further reductions in other areas of local government in order to offset this, but also fund other local government priorities. So we have made an additional reduction of 3.5 billion in terms of the Integrated National Electrification Program, which is run by Eskom through this grant. This was possible, honorable members. If you look at the census data, we would see that we've actually done quite a lot in terms of the electrification component, where we've covered already 95% of households in the country. So there really was scope to then make additional cuts there, but also because this grant has also in the recent years struggled to spend, which then further ensured that the impact is not going to be felt on the ground. There were additional also reductions in terms of the regional bulk infrastructure grant, amounting to 852 million. So this again, I mean, is part of ensuring that where there was scope, we could increase in terms of the cut to offset some of the areas. The honorable members had considered the conversion in terms of the indirect MIC, which is a new component within the municipal infrastructure grant. So these really are more of your carry-through costs of that. So 58 million in 24-25 has been converted, which means the National Department of Cooperative Governance will be assisting these municipalities to then spend that money. Again, there's also 587 million in terms of the direct component of the RBIC, which is converted to an indirect then. We were also quite pleased that we could also make a provision for the Municipal Disaster Recovery Grant to the tune of 1.4 billion. So this was really to then cater for the carry-through costs of the disasters that we experienced early last year. There's quite a lot of pressure in local government around, the disasters that have taken place, and I don't think this will be the last conversation we're having around putting additional resources to try and help municipalities deal with the issues that they're experiencing. Again, 2 billion is also shifted to create a new baseline for the smart meter grants. And then there was also an additional 650 million that was added to the Neighborhood Development Partnership Program grant, which has really assisted in terms of job creation in that space. Zooming into the smart meters grant. So this is a new grant, honorable members, which will be administered by the National Treasury. It's really closely linked to the municipality debt relief program for Eskom, as it will focus on those municipalities, that are in the program and that have made some commitments. We're then trying to assist them in terms of ensuring that, this particular solution system address some of the billing issues, some of, the culture of non-payment that is there. So these prepaid smart meters will then assist in terms of reducing things like your technical and non-technical losses. So this really in the main is quite a big thing for these municipalities, because not only are they getting the debt relief, but also there's a way in which government is trying to create that in a sustainable in a sustainable manner. And it's been greatly appreciated through the intergovernmental consultation forums. The honorable members would also know that the trading services across all municipal groups have been under pressure. There are all kinds of reports around the failing infrastructure, and the performance really of these trading services has been declining. There are a number of reasons that have come to the shore, and we are aware that there are issues around management, the leadership, but also skills. And through the conditional grants review, we're also aware that the incentives that we've put into the system have also not worked so well. So we're trying to rectify those by, putting better incentives in the system, because it's quite important that we improve the functioning of these trading services, because even the economic growth is highly dependent on these, especially if you look at the cities, because those are the engines of growth in terms of what they contribute to the GDP of this country. So we're working with various stakeholders here, honorable members, to design really a program that is focused on these trading services, the main trading services, in terms of, putting together a financing mechanism, which is also going to serve as an incentive, that is based on institutional reforms in these municipalities. So there are turnaround urban trading services plans that need to be produced. Starting in 24-25, the cities will then be expected to put these together so that they are in the next financial year, which is 25-26, are able to benefit from a new package that will consist of government funding, but also private sector resources and expertise, but also the DFIs will be coming on board. So it's all systems go. We're quite excited about this, and we do hope that there's gonna be buy-in in these cities, so that we're able to then make meaningful progress in as far as that is concerned. We have also indicated to the honorable members when we met late last year that there were some regulatory frameworks, and there was improvement in terms of the work that the Department of Water and Sanitation was doing, the production of regular reports there, and we were earmarking the general purpose grants as a vehicle that we could start with in terms of using those. I'm happy to announce to the honorable members that from 24-25, then municipalities will then be required to ensure that the results of the green drop, blue drop, and no drop assessments are considered in the planning phases, and then that the prioritization of projects from the infrastructure funding perspective, but also from the maintenance aspects is being considered. So this has really been put as a condition for municipalities in terms of the IUDG as well as the MIC at the moment. Honorable members, that's it from me. Back to you, Wendy.
Recording in progress.
Thank you so much. Can we then go to the next slide? What I'll be doing is taking you through the substantive changes to the Division of Revenue Bill, and just highlight, what we're changing and the reason why. We changed the duties of transferring officers in respect of Schedule 5 or 6 allocations. And the reason why we're making this change is that although it's very, very clear that the monitoring of allocations, conditional grant allocations for Schedule 5 or direct allocations are that of the National Transferring Officer, it's just to make also very clear that in terms of Schedule 6 or indirect grant allocation, that the transferring officer must also monitor both the financial and non-financial performance of allocations funded through that program. Then with regard to the next change that we've made is to section 12, and that deals with the issues in terms of transparency, in terms of the accreditation of municipalities. A number of years ago, we split what we refer to as the Human Settlements Development Grant into two grants to have a component that just focuses on the human settlements development. And then we created a new component that we referred to as the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant. That's specifically targeted at dealing with informal settlements and uplifting informal settlements. And we did not include that to also gazette the allocations before the time and agree on a payment schedule. So what we've done is we've just extended it to include both the USD, the Human Settlements Development Grant, as well as the ISIP, or the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant. And we've done it both for provinces and we've done similarly for local government as well. Then we've also made changes to section 14, what we've indicated here, we've just added that they must also indicate the systems that they use to monitor compliance with the Act. In the past, it was a bit confusing in terms of what type of monitoring and how the monitoring should be reported on. So this was just to clarify that section. Next slide, please. Then with regard to section 16, we've made a change as well, and that specifically deals with the issue of an allocation, and when there's shifts made between allocations in the exact date when it comes into effect, and it just clarified that when the Gazette is made, that is the date of the Gazette that it becomes applicable. Then I've already taken you through the adding the grant in terms of the Informal Settlement Upgrading Partnership Grant for municipalities, and the same applies here as well. Then in terms of the conversion of allocations, and this specifically deals with a conversion where an indirect allocation or where allocation is administered by a national department, when it's converted to a direct allocation, which means it will then be administered by the municipality, for example, or and what we've just added here is that in cases where that conversion takes place, that the provincial treasury also just be consulted, because we do know that provincial treasury also monitor municipalities, for example, so they would also know whether the municipality indeed has the capacity to do that, accept the conversion and undertake the functions linked to that. And then just with regard to Schedule 7 allocations that specifically deal with disaster management allocations, again, there was a bit of unclarity when it comes into effect. Again, this was just to clarify, the 100 days starts counting as soon as the disaster has been classified as a disaster. So that is just to clarify that as well. Thanks. Next slide. And then just the changes we made to the schedules of the bill is just to make provision for the new smart meters grant that Dr. Pakis took you through. Thanks. That's it from our side. Next.
Kamodise.
Thank you, Madam. Good morning, honorable members and chairpersons. My job today is quite simple. I'll be looking at the proposed second adjustment appropriation bill. Chairperson, I think as a start, what is critical for us is the reasons why we would bring such a bill to the attention of the committee. And I just want to clarify that the decision to have a special bill is not something, or the second adjustment bid is not something that we take light, and it's not something that we think should become a norm, because basically the budget process should be that these adjustments are made in the October MTBPS and avoiding such having such bills. In this case, Chairperson and honorable members, the key was following the budget reductions that were proposed at the time of the October budget. There were some departments who were unfortunately unable to absorb the full cost of the budget reductions. However, there were other departments that one could absorb the budget reductions, but also could identify areas where spending would be lower than expected. And we had to then make a decision of whether do we let these departments, the ones that are not going to be able to absorb, register unauthorized expenditure, or do we assist these departments looking at the possible underspending that exists in the system? So basically the choice then was, let's look at what is there in the system. Is there a possibility that these funds can be transferred to the departments where there's pressure? And if there are, then can we propose to Parliament that consideration be taken to look at these allocations? So quickly, Chairperson and honorable members, the first few slides basically just provide the processes that we need to follow and the different acts that allows us to present to Parliament a second adjustments appropriation bill. This just looks at the process that the bill will have to follow. But basically, honorable members, what we did was we looked at two departments where there was potential underspending, and those departments were the Department of Quota, as well as the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, where they identified 400 million in Quota and another 70 million in the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, where they're likely to see some savings. And we took that amount and reallocated it to departments where we saw a bit of pressure. And these departments, honorable members, align to the presentation that we did for the third quarter spending outcomes. And these are the ones where we think that they need to be assisted in order to avoid unauthorized expenditure. So the first one, Chairpersons and honorable members, the first department that we looked at was the Department of the Presidency, and the 70 million that is proposed to Parliament for allocation is split into two. There's the allocation for the Minister, or the cost of the Minister of Electricity. This was not budgeted for in the 2023 budget review, as the decision was taken during the process. And we tried to identify funding in the MTBPS, but because of the additional budget reductions for the presidency is not going to be able to absorb this cost. And the second part of this allocation would go to e-cabinet systems. That is also there was the presidency is in the process of finalizing the e-cabinet process. Basically is to get everything into the systems to avoid leakages and things like that. And the total proposal here is 70 million, split as 50 million for the cost of the Ministry of Electricity, and then another 20 million for finalizing or finishing of the project on the cabinet system. The second one that we're presenting to you, Chairpersons and honorable members, would be cooperative governance. As I said, this department identified the underspending of about 400 million, and this underspending is mainly going to come from their program, Community Works program, and this is mainly because of some of the delays in finalizing the contract, and as a result, they will register underspending for this year. Part of what we also had to look at, honorable members and chairperson, when we were finalizing the budget was whether the IEC has been allocated enough funding or sufficient funding to make sure that there's no compromise in the elections. And in the budget, one of the changes or one of the proposals that we're making in the appropriation bill, which we'll be presenting later, is an additional allocations of about 250 million for the IEC, and that would be to deal with the elections. But together with that allocation, there's also a proposal that we're presenting to you today, and that proposal would be 200 million that we think that should be allocated to political party funds. There was an additional allocation that was done in 2022-23, and that was a once-off allocation. But because of the costs that are associated with the elections and the fact that there's pressure that is going to come through, then the proposal is just to add an additional allocation once off for 23-24 of 200 million that will be distributed between the different parties. Then, Chairperson, the next one would be DECO. Because DECO's business, unfortunately, would be they do business with the rest of the world. The exchange rate impacts tend to compromise them quite a lot. The first thing that we had to look at was whether they have sufficient funds to deal with exchange rate depreciations. But secondly, we also had to look at whether DECO can be compensated. During the course of the year, they were partially compensated in the MTBPS, we used the unforeseen and unavoidable, but despite that additional allocation, the persistent depreciation of the rand is placing a significant pressure for the department. And now we're proposing 80 million that should be added to the department. And if they didn't have budget reductions or there was no persistent depreciation of the rand, the department's budget would have been able to absorb 80 million, but because of the pressures, they will be struggling to absorb this, and that's why we're proposing an additional 80 million for DECO. The Public Service Commission's honorable members and chairperson, we're proposing an additional allocation of 12 million, and basically here is to compensate them for the compensation of employees. And this is mainly because they didn't budget for the increase in the wages, and they are seeing a lot of pressure in absorbing the full cost of the wage agreement. Therefore, the 12 million will definitely assist them. Public Works and Infrastructure, as I said, they identified savings of about 70 million, and basically this funding, together with the money that we got from Proctor, will be used to fund some of the pressures. But for this particular one, the shift will be, or is presented to go to the presidency, and this is both for the Minister of Electricity as well as the cabinet system. There's been areas where they've identified the funding. The first one was for compensation of employees, and this was because of the vacancies that were there. The expanded public works program, another 8 million, and the property and construction industry policy and research, there's another 35 million that was identified there. And basically this is mainly due to some of the delays in appointing consultants for project preparation. Then the Department of Youth and Persons with Disabilities here, the proposal would be twofold. The first part of the money will go to the department itself, and basically, chairperson and honorable members, the thing with this department is that most of the money goes or is transfers in subsidies. Therefore, if you reduce their budget, it immediately impacts on the functioning of the department. When we looked at the MTBPS, because at that time, the department was still trying to implement the cost containment measures. We were looking at the possibility that they'll be able to absorb this, but given the demands, especially for traveling in this department, the reductions really impacted on their operations and functionality. So there's a proposal of 8 million that we think Parliament should consider to alleviate pressures on goods and services, and another 5 million to be transferred to the Commission for Gender Equality. And this is mainly because the entity is very small and they did receive the budget reductions. And at that time, we considered the surpluses that they had, but even after we approved some of the surpluses that they have, there still remain pressure, and that's why we're proposing to Parliament to consider allocating an additional 5 million for this entity. And then the last vote, Chairperson and honorable members, is Justice and Constitutional Development. And basically this would be to assist with the wages or the wage agreement. And mainly this is for Justice for Court Services, as well as the National Prosecuting Authority. So this is for the entities rather than for the department itself. We did go ask and discuss with the department the possibility of them assisting these entities, but they're also in a tight corner, and looking at where they are in terms of spending, they might overspend because of the wage agreement, and given that Justice and Constitutional Development is a compensation heavy department. So we're monitoring it tight, but we think for these two entities, it's better to propose to Parliament to allocate the funding. So basically, Chairpersons, this and honorable members, this is the proposal. Thank you so much for considering it with the Division of Revenue Bill, because these are the adjustments for the 2023-24 fiscal year. We would appreciate, if possible, of course, for Parliament to expedite this bill so that we can finalize it, or it can be enacted by the 31st of March, if possible, so that all of these transactions can be recorded in the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Chairperson, honorable members, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Modise. Mahosh, over to you.
Thank you, Memadi Jeng. Good morning, Chair and honorable members. I am going to ask Nokwanda if you could fly the slides, please. I don't have control. I will start in the meantime. Chair, we are here to request the committee and Parliament to consider the amendment to the Gold and Foreign Contingency Reserve Account Defrayal Act. This act is provided for in the Sub-Act, and the Sub-Act provides for the management of this account in such a manner that all the profits and losses arising from the revaluation of the bank's holdings of foreign currencies, as well as from its trading in gold and other accounts, that the profits and losses are accounted for from the GFECRA account. Next slide, please. So as I said, it is held at the Reserve Bank, and the Sub-Act establishes the GFECRA and empowers the Minister and the Governor to determine the use of the balances by mutual agreement. And it requires that such balances be paid into the National Revenue Fund. So the the current Defrayal Act only accounts for the profit, for the losses. And so the amendment will make sure that we are able to also account for the profits because the value of the account has since grown. It's now over 500 billion due to the significant rand depreciation. Next slide, please. So what we are also doing, Chair, is that we are trying to introduce a framework, a settlement framework that will be used on an annual basis should there be a need to transfer funds from the National Revenue Fund to the SARB to satisfy the requirements of the GFECRA. And this will be done at the end of each financial year once we have determined the size of the GFECRA account. So we don't expect that this large balance that we have to continue into the future. So what is in the framework? As I said, the framework will have 3 buffers. The first buffer will see an amount being left into the GFECRA settlement account to help with those movements in the currency. The second one will go to the contingency reserve account of the SARB, and whatever is remaining from that from that calculation will then be transferred to the National Treasury on an annual basis. Next slide, please. We're also introducing, as I said, a settlement agreement, and this agreement will be premised on a set of principles which we have agreed on with the SARB. And these principles basically say that that no settlement of any balance on the GFECRA shall at any time undermine the policy solvency of the SARB. There shall be no sales of foreign exchange reserves to realize GFECRA gains, as long as foreign exchange reserves are below the foreign exchange reserve estimated adequacy level. There shall be no settlement of an unrealized balance on the GFECRA to the National Treasury that could possibly be unwound by future currency reversals. The settlement of the credit balance on the GFECRA to the National Treasury shall be used to reduce government's borrowing. And finally, any future settlement of GFECRA funds shall be governed by this agreement in a relevant schedule. What are the amounts? Next slide. The GFECRA buffer is being set at 250 billion. And the sub-contingency reserve buffer will receive 100 billion. And the National Treasury will receive 150 billion. And as detailed in the budget review, this will be paid out in 3 tranches of 100 billion, 25 billion, and 25 billion in the 2024 financial year and in the subsequent 2 financial years respectively. We expect that this arrangement will have some costs to the fiscus, and those costs are expected to be around 8 billion in 2024, 10 billion in 2025, and 12 billion in 2026. But the exact costs will obviously depend on the level of short-term interest rates. And in terms of how the funds will be used, of course, these funds, we've proposed that once they reach the National Revenue Fund, they are used to reduce the government borrowing. Therefore, 150 billion will be used, and as a result, we expect that this will reduce debt servicing costs by about 30 billion over the medium term. And this will be accompanied by a reduction in the stock of debt. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Team Treasury, for those presentations on the 3 bills which are before us. Just to say, Dr. Modise, you have asked us to fast track your bill so that it can be done during this term. The information I can give you is that we are debating the bills in Parliament on the 27th of March, and we've, as SCO, have tried everything to try and deal with the 3 bills within these 30 days remaining. So we understand you, but I'm not very sure about the NCOP process. So I think you'll have to do the same pitch to them. But thank you very much, Madijeng and your team. You know how we do it, honorable members. Let me get indications of the honorable members who would like to interact with the presentations. I see Honorable Sheikh Imam. I see Honorable Matafa. Yes, honorable members, I'm waiting. Honorable members, I've got Honorable Sheikh, I've Honorable Matafa. Any other member would like to interact with the presentation? I hope honorable members can hear me. I see Honorable Taiso. Any other member? Okay, honorable members, you indicate once you are ready. Let me start with the Honorable Sheikh Imam. Honorable Sheikh Imam, please come in.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and allow me to welcome the presentation by National Treasury. However, I do have some concerns. My first one is, I noticed that there is an increase in allocation to local government, which we welcome because we believe that the resources that we have been appropriated previously are not enough. However, what measures is National Treasury putting in place to ensure that these monies that we are allocating are going to be well spent and that services will be delivered to the people, given that the Auditor General's recent report of 5.19 billion wasted?
Honorable Sheikh Imam. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Yes, Chair.
Yes. Apologies for, I know you are multitasking, but the other one is interfering with your.
Okay, I've just stopped. Sorry about that, Chair. I'll go back there quickly. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I've got appropriations, I've got police, and I've got chief of. But thank you. Yeah, so my concern is, while we welcome the increase of 5.2% increase on local government, the question is, 5.19 billion is what the latest Auditor General's report says, of where goods were ordered, paid for, never delivered, a whole lot of things, and that's only 170 out of the 257 municipalities. Now, I know we need to give a lot more money to local government. Local governments are not doing enough to become self-sustainable, and there's a lot that they can do. Now, what measures is National Treasury putting in place to ensure that again, I come back to the issue of value for money, knowing very well the problems we've got. I remember, Chair, I wrote to National Treasury about procurement and advertising it on a monthly basis. They could only come back to me and tell me that is a requirement. And then are they doing it? No. What is National Treasury doing? Nothing about it. So I'd like to know, how are you going to ensure that these additional allocations or all allocations are well spent? Because the levels of corruption, I can tell you, is very high at local government, and they can ill afford such a thing. That's my first one. The second thing is this. I know we're talking about the smart meters. It's a crisis on the ground with smart meters. People are waiting for 1 and 2 years to be able to roll these things out. So while there's additional allocations for these things, I'm not sure whether they have the capacity. This can perhaps create its own industry and manufacturing and things, or are we importing these things from China? Maybe they can give us some clarity where these things are coming from. Are they local manufacturers? Can they meet the demand? Perhaps prepaid meters might be the route to go throughout the country, both in water and in electricity. Now, my other concern, Chairperson, and I'll stop there, is that we're digging into this, and I need in ABC language an understanding of the 150 billion that we are taking away from our gold reserves. What is the implications of that? Where are we heading if we're now deciding to go and dig into this only reserves we had? And the fact that our debt to GDP is increasing, your debt service cost is increasing, you're borrowing for infrastructure where projects are not even being implemented properly. You're also borrowing, for sustaining ourselves rather than on infrastructure and things for our current expenditure on administration. If you look at the large percentage of our budget that goes towards administration in the country and things, and to also sustain social assistance grants and things, these are why we're actually borrowing a lot of money. How and where do you think we are heading as far as this the direction we are actually taking? And what is the greatest risk that is being posed in us taking this decision to take out 150 billion? Can we expect further monies until that is depleted? I'll stop there for now, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh Imam. Honorable Matafa.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson, members and Team Treasury. Chair, I request to keep my video off. My network is very unstable and I got kicked out twice already. Perfect. If you allow, Chair.
Perfect. Please proceed, Honorable Matafa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair. Let me start by appreciating the presentation and maybe speak on 3 issues. Maybe one on the proposals of adjustments. Chair, the first one is on the issue of the lack of capacity on the implementation of projects in local municipalities, as well as lack of revenue generation. Now, I'm just interested to find out how is this budget responding to these challenges in order to improve the quality of service received by our residents. And I'm raising this, Chair, because time and time again, we tend to throw money at the problem. The money gets thrown back to National Treasury due to underspending, which is a problem. So I'm interested to find out if whether are there measures that would have been put in place or agreed to as the National Treasury went through its consultation process with the relevant stakeholders, particularly province and the local government, to say that here's the money, it is increasing, as Honorable Sheikh Imam has indicated, but for it not to come back, we request you to do the following. So I'm just interested in that point. The second one, Chair, is on this smart meters grant. I'm just interested in finding out if whether does National Treasury envisage a uniform, generic, and similar approach by municipalities. I note in the presentation that they are working with various sectors to develop a program around the grant. But we understand that municipalities operate in different circumstances and in different political dynamics. So my question is if whether do they anticipate a similar program, whether be it at a local or at the metro municipality, or are they open to flexibility? And also, if also there is, how will they respond to areas where they know there is a need to assist the revenue generation and also to stabilize the billing situation, but the response or the take-up by that particular municipality is not in line with the time expectations by National Treasury? Is there anything that in between can be done? Chair, the third point is on the disaster grant. I welcome the developments where there is clarification, particularly around the time frame at which the funds can be released. However, I'm just concerned with what follows after, which is normally the procurement process to have service providers respond to the infrastructure requirements or services that are required. Chair, I'm raising this because in the past 3 weeks, we've been frequenting the province of KZN, and it's disheartening to hear that there are some areas where they do not have water for over a year now. And the reason they still do not have water today, pardon me, since the last disaster, is blamed on the normal procurement process. So my question is, when a disaster is declared, do we also still stick to normal procurement processes? Or is there a way that National Treasury can come in and say, look, here is a disaster, or this matter is a matter of life and death because water is life. Maybe relax your procurement processes, but to be in compliance with the law, these are the steps that you can follow. Because we've been in some of these areas, like in Ward 41 in Kwamashu, the residents there still do not have water. And when you ask the officials, they tell you about the procurement processes. I just want to hear the view of National Treasury as far as that approach is concerned, or if whether they can be relaxed a procurement process that will still be within the confines of the law. Chair, the last point is on the proposals for adjustments that Dr. Modise presented. I'm very concerned, Chair, and actually disappointed with the under expenditure in Vote 13, Public Works and Infrastructure, particularly when you consider the fact that the underspending relates to employment opportunities, because it states that 12 million has been underspent on administration for employee compensation, vacant posts, and expanded public works program at 8 million rands. My understanding is that the expanded public works program is an intervention by government to mitigate the effects of poverty and inequality due to unemployment, and by creating short-term employment opportunities where there are infrastructure projects. Now, if you underspend in this category, Chair, where when the president speaks about what is the anchor pillar to turn the economy around, he speaks about infrastructure development. For me, it is worrying. And I'm seriously raising my concern as far as that is concerned. Treasury can respond to my views, or they can just note it and take it away to say that where there are issues of employment opportunities and there is underspending, Treasury must raise a red flag, and those particular authorities made to understand that this cannot be acceptable, especially as the rate of unemployment keeps on rising. And the president speaks of infrastructure as the anchor to moving the economy forward. I'm just concerned as far as that is concerned. But it's also common, Chair, that where there is underspending, in most cases, is compensation of employees. Hence, I'm also interested to find out on Vote 12, I think it's Competition Commission, there is money allocated for filling of vacancies. How sure are we that these vacancies will be filled? Because most departments, it has become apparent, they will make vacancies available, they will not advertise, they will not fill these vacancies. Come the budget adjustment, then they will move those funds into other performing functions. Yet the country is grappling with a serious rate of unemployment. Chair, I will pause there, but once again, thanks for the presentation. We'll definitely ensure that, as the Chair indicated, we expedite it within the time that is possible. Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Matafa, thank you so much. Honorable Kaiso, please come in.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And let me try. Where is this? Yes, I'm just trying to deal with the camera here.
Yeah, we can see
thank you very
now.
much, and good morning, honorable members on the platform and Treasury. Let me first start with the welcoming of this presentation, even though it's very late and we could not, prepare ourselves thoroughly for to engage on the subject. And I mean, it's very bad. I think it's important that to repeat what the chairperson has said, so that you don't repeat it once more. Chair, I want to agree with Honorable Oscar on a number of areas that he has raised, including the performance, and declining of the urban trading performance by local municipalities, failure to invest in the infrastructure. Some of these matters, such as time-as billing, I mean, it has been, we have been raising these things a long time ago, but it seems as if there is a blockage or there's something that is not being done correctly here, because of the repetition of the same story. So I don't know what is it. Maybe the Treasury has a way to explain what is it that they pick up in this problem. Even though I understand you're still saying there's a lack of skill, and so the lack of skill and capacity. We have repeated this question quite a number of times. So I don't know what is it that the Treasury is thinking about this matter. Otherwise, I see it going to be continuing beyond this. So I want to know what Treasury is actually proposing around this to be remedied. And let me jump to the adjustment appropriations. I think one would like to welcome this adjustment appropriation bill. It proposes a number of significant adjustments which will have impact on the life of our people and improve any point of difficulty in service delivery. So it's really been welcomed to do adjustment around those, and of course, and the bill on gold foreign exchange. It's a positive intervention from the side of the government. So now, I don't know what was the reason, firstly, if I'm on the adjustment appropriation bill, to understand why initially there wasn't thinking of generation performance during the budget, or in the medium-term framework, because this was not taken into consideration. We tried to ask this: how is it generation capacity is going to be, sustained in ESCOM during unbundling process? It doesn't reflect how generation is going to be then covered, because it obviously tells you you are going to need a generation capacity performance at that level, but there wasn't. So obviously it was going to lead to this situation where adjustment would be then have to be done in order to avoid the crisis doubling itself at ESCOM. So it's really welcoming. On the, yes, as I've said, I'll be moving backward and forward on the inputs. On revenue, division of revenue amendment bill, it is really welcome to see that it covers the issue on basic services, free basic services, which is going to uplift the lives of the poor communities, such that the poor are able to reach the services, free services of the government. I mean, it's really applauded, that one. It's a serious move to intervene during these difficulties of the economy for our people to can make a better living. Chairperson, on the there's a last question that I was trying to I didn't hear Treasury, what is it intending to do on the situation where investment companies want to disinvest. Others were even bragging about, disinvesting in local municipalities because of lack of proper infrastructure, infrastructure investment. I don't know what has been the response of Treasury to intervene in those circumstances where a number of some companies have mentioned to disinvest, because there is a lack of proper infrastructure where they can, invest in local municipalities. Is there any future intervention in those? It's very clear that municipalities' performance was declining, as a result of such decisions, and they pose a threat to the economies of the local economies. Chair, let me stop at this stage. Perhaps I'll come back for after the round.
Thank you, Honorable Kaiso. Honorable Lenzana, please come in.
Greetings, Chairperson. Perhaps let me also try just for you to see that you are not talking to a robot. Though I fear that I am contesting here with network, if you may allow me perhaps to switch off the video, Chair, because this network connectivity is not reliable. But let me try. I will. Can you hear me? Am I audible, Chair?
Very much so, Honorable Lenzana.
Okay, thanks. Now let me continue then with the video. Chair, just a few things. Of course, starting with welcoming the presentations. Of course, they know Team Treasury. It's always what they always do, though they haven't been on the mark today, but then you dealt with that. I don't have to harp on it. Chair, on the adjustment appropriation bill, let me, as I've indicated, welcome it, but then just check with Team Treasury. I've noticed that not all votes have been picked up. Maybe perhaps you have identified some. Now I would like to check. How does this adjustment appropriation respond to the State of the Nation address? Or put it the other way around. How are the injunctions raised by the President in SONA catered for in terms of this adjustment appropriation? Then on this one is generic, Chair. This one is generic on understanding. We have been harping on this. We have been harping on this, but now I do not know what could be the panacea looking forward, wherein you can see that in some votes, as Honorable Matafa has indicated, understanding is actually resulting into subjecting our communities into distress, whilst the very same entities and departments cry foul when we introduce reprioritization of the budget, and instead they would be talking budget cuts. Chair, welcoming the division of revenue. This is, I'm thinking aloud here, Madibeng and Dr. Mampo. I'm thinking aloud here. I'm just checking I raised this, I think it was yesterday. What is your thinking on trying to more of flexing the muscle of the district development model, such that when we're talking particularly division of revenue, of course, one would know that we are talking of a local government which is at the coal face of service delivery. This is what I said yesterday. But realization of such, for many reasons, as were raised by Honorable Matav, make the same revenue, not hitting the ground, the same allocation, not hitting the ground, doing what it is actually meant for. Now, is there no way of saying through DDM, there's abrupt financial management? When I'm talking financial management, I'm broad, Chairperson, deliberately, because it would start from generation revenue, assisting them, going to expenditure, and ultimately the risk monitoring and all. Is there no way where we can fuse in that function, which would then allow a situation where you don't have a situation where one municipality would cry foul of processes delaying, whether procurement processes or what, delayed in terms of grants? Because what I have in mind, Chair, is a situation where you would have allocated these grants, all of them, but then there be some kind of control, monitoring, and otherwise through TTM. Thanks, Chairperson. Let me once more thank Team Treasury for the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Lenzana. Can I check, are there any other members who still would like to say something?
I'm from the Mezi, Chair.
Honorable Mezi, please come in.
Chairperson, I'm very covered by almost all the honorable members that spoke before me. It will be just an emphasis on my side, in particular because one has visited a number of our townships that are quite needy in terms of our government officials implementing the budget that we forever give them on a yearly basis. That would be the reason for one to put the emphasis. I was in Chesterville, in Durban. I was in Beggersdal, in West Rand, in Gauteng. I really found a lot of disparate situation on the ground in our townships of the people. So meaning the services that we expect the public servants to be giving to our people is attempted to be given, but there's always shortcomings. So we therefore call upon Treasury to ensure that they put some measures to assist us to ensure that our government employees do what they are paid for. Also use the resources we are allocating to them for the benefit of the people in these townships. I am happy that other members also spoke about the failure to spend under expenditure, which is almost becoming a fashion year in, year out. Of course, when one inquires at the municipalities that one has visited, they complain that Treasury tend to keep them writing lot of documents, lot of forms. They are kept in office, writing a lot of paperwork, trying to comply. I wonder if Treasury has not simplified the compliance document that is expected from in particular from municipalities, because they seem to put it as something that keep them not going to our communities. I wonder how true that may be, that your compliance documentation keep everybody in office. So I wonder if National Treasurer can respond on it. But all our government employees are supposed to undergo performance management, training and performance indicators. I wonder if those indicators are followed, because comparing the work of government employees and the work of the private sector, we are always a little bit feel embarrassed. So, because our employees don't really go out as often as we want them. Whereas on the private sector side, indeed, what an employee is doing every day is always recorded and is per the target. Whereas on the side of government, our employees miss the target. So we call upon and we expect National Treasurer, because at least is one department that do whip. So we expect them to assist in these weaknesses. Of course, the issue of vacancies in our government department at all spheres is almost like a fashion, and yet we need people to be employed. There's a lot of unemployment. There's a cry. The president spoke about it in the SONA. We expect all the department to respond. So maybe the team treasury must also assist us, ensure that all spheres of government must respond. We can't be having so many vacancies in all spheres and you have budget that is not spent. So I think team treasurers must really assist us. I think, Chair, I must end there. Thank you.
Comrade
Thank you,
Chair.
Comrade Menezi, thank you very much. Any other comrade would like to have something to add? Comrade,
Yes.
want to say something?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Just two questions. I forgot to ask this one or make follow-up, because it is we often raise it, and even Salga used to raise this question, and we still expecting them to raise it once more. The issue of reviewal of the budget or model for local government. I just want to know how far is the Treasury around this matter, given what appears on, if I'm not mistaken, slide 15, you showed us some graphs there which indicates, a decline in revenue by municipalities, but we forgot to talk about the reviewal of the budgeting model for our local government, so that they perform maximum. The second one is on the Commission for Gender Equity. I just want to understand that 13 million, is it also covering the subnational level, or what is the breakdown of that 13 million? Because my understanding is that is at a national level, but then how it's gonna be, broken down to the subnational level, so that it's very clear that moving forward, our expectation is that across the department, then we must see it in their budgets. So this is my understanding. If it's not that one, maybe Treasury should highlight us how is this going to happen, because the issue of campaigning against gender-based violence and related struggles is not only confined to the space of national, but it is also supposed to happen at the subnational level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Guy. So any other member? Okay. It looks like it's my turn. Let me join the oral members and thank you, Team Treasury led by Madi Jane for the presentations. Let me start with my questions. Perhaps let me start with slide number 10. There are changes which we are talking about, the addition and subtractions. If we could just go back to that slide, and I wanted to look at the net impact of those changes. Do they end up being an addition, or do they end up being a subtraction? Slide 10. And then on slide 11, the question of reprioritization of the ECD. Again, can you repeat that, and what are you trying to achieve there, and what's the impact of you moving that money from where you are moving it from? Question number 3. What is the amount that is that is waiting for Western Cape Education, Department of Education? Certain Western Cape must comply for it to be able to access that money, but I don't think I saw the exact amount there. A little bit of education here. We talk about, in one of us, that app and trading services. What do those services include? What exactly is happening there? Yeah, the question of local government equity share expenditure, it's with all other expenditures are problematic, but the LGS under expenditure is a big problem for obvious reasons, that it means in that municipality people won't have any services, because if they can't even comply with the requirements of LGS, their ability to raise money on their own is very much suspect. So it generally means that there won't be any services provided in that municipality. Yet there are people who are living there. How do you think we can go around this thing? Is there any stick that perhaps we can use, especially to the officials and executives who are failing to comply with this? Because the impact is not felt by them, but it's felt by the voters, the people who have elected all of us. And it's not a question of money not being there. It's people who are appointed to do work not being able to. So I'm saying at your level, is there any stick that we think, or can we start having some teeth to bite to make sure that it is punishable? I think where still is that under expenditure even is not an audit finding. I don't know whether Treasury would like to engage with AG to see whether we shouldn't be amending that part where under expenditure, because its impact is very huge. where we can say that we need to make some amendment on that. But related to this under expenditure, yeah, perhaps let's also agree. Let's call it under expenditure, Dr. Mamp. Let's not sugarcoat it and call it savings. It's not savings. It's under expenditure. That's what it is. But once, I think one problem that we have identified, I'm sure there are many other explanatory variables on this problem. But one of the problems that we have identified, colleagues, is the question of the lack of project management skills. We can go into this, but I just want to check, is there any initiative coming from National Treasury or COGTA or Public Service to try and deal with the skill? Because it's a skill that is not there, not just in all the departments at national and provincial, but in even SOEs. And we're allocating big sums of money for infrastructure spending. No wonder that this is an area that continuously, as we have heard from the oral members, is underspent. And we had identified very early that we need to do something. From our side, we just want to see and recommend to you that you take that as your project, because if money is not spent, it comes back to you again. We know that you are not ultimately responsible, but it affects you, it affects your budgeting, it affects everything that you do. So you should have an interest into what type of skill that we need. And we have said project management skill, it's so conspicuous by its absence in our administration. Madam Hoshi, it's definitely the first time we deal with Chief Rekha in our committee, and thank you for the information that you are giving us. I definitely would like to further engage on this on this one. But I think the positive from us here is that when Rome is burning, it's very important that everybody who can be in a position to extinguish the fires must come in and help. And this is the one area, and that's the first time I think the South African Reserve Bank has come in, and that's quite commendable. Tell me if I'm wrong. There was a year when this account was in a deficit that National Treasury came in. Am I right? If I'm right, what were the circumstances? Because it should not be seen as just a one-way process. So I would like for you to expand on that. And then you also spoke about the 8 billion rand cost of all this, of what is happening here. Please share with the committee as to exactly how does that cost arise. Those will be our questions. Madam Adijeng, please come in with your team. You just do as you did when you were presenting, making people who are responsible for questions reply, only bringing the meeting back to me once you have attended to all the issues that have been raised by the oral members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and honorable members for all these questions. So we will try to respond to the questions. So maybe I will start, and then the team on the division of revenue will also add, and then Dr. Modise can address some of the questions and the questions that Mahosh can respond to. So if I may start, honorable members, local government, I think the very first question from Honorable Sheikh and Honorable Matafa has to do with the issues of capacity both to deliver the services and to spend rather than to spend the money, and also to collect the revenue. So I think those are the key concerns that we sit with, because I think as Treasury, we try by all means to make sure that the budget responds to the needs. And I think that is the core of our responsibility to the extent possible. And we appreciation that there is a healthy growth in the budget of local government, both in terms of equitable share and conditional grants, as you compare it with other spheres of government that are experiencing much slower growth. And I think it reflects the intention to always support the local government. So as the space appears for revenue, there is always a bias towards growing the local government share at a much faster rate to address this problem. But I think as honorable members appreciating that the problem is not always money. The problem is really around how that money is used to deliver services to the extent that it is allocated and not being wasted. And it is also the municipality capacity and effort to optimize on its own revenue, which is one of the major issues as we engage with this revenue problem as part of the fiscal framework of local government that we are finding and kind of wrestling with. So what we are doing in terms of ensuring that the money is spent, we also rely on our sister departments, because when you look at the issues of performance management and the institutional issues that has to do with capacity and the skills, those are regulated in terms of Municipal Systems Act, that then put COGTA in the driving seats, even in terms of the structure of these organizations and whether they are actually fit for purpose. So I think part of the engagements would also be around there. And I think from the wasteful, irregular, and authorized expenditure, what the Treasury is doing, which is also the function that is shared with COGTA, is to put in place the audit action plans that then says, how do you address this irregular expenditure? And as you address them, therefore, you are putting the appropriate systems in place to ensure that this don't recur. So obviously the issue is the extent to which municipalities are able to respond, which is always a challenge in terms of response, but also ensuring sustainability and continuity, because sometimes you would think that we have addressed this problem, and then when you turn around, when there's a different leadership, things collapse. So there is that sense of discontinuity that is a problem. So I do think that this issue of local government services delivery and performance, which honorable members are on every appearance that we have, are always actually raising. And we are always trying to say, this is what we are doing. Sometimes I'm wondering whether whatever we are doing and whatever we are trying to do within the current system of powers and function and the delivery model that is set out by the Constitution and legislation, whether indeed we are able to make an impact that is sustainable, or whether it actually says to us there is some learning that we need to learn in terms of what reforms legislatively and constitutionally needs to be put in place, given what we have learned over the last 30 odd years that we have been having this kind of functional assignments and configuration of the functions, particularly with regard to the functions that local government delivers. I think there is a lot of lessons, even globally, that actually shows that the way we have allocated the functions and the model of delivery, it's almost unique, and it doesn't necessarily lead to professionalization of the services, which is what you need in terms of the water, these trading services, water, electricity, and solid. So it doesn't lend itself to that because of the choices and decisions that municipalities' leadership tend to make in constituting the administration. So I think for me, there's a bigger question there to say, should we be engaging in terms of, should we be reforming the system to focus more on service delivery and experience of people, maybe less on trying to wrestle with trying to get local government itself as an institution to implement. I do think that some of the changes, reforms, like driven by the Department of Water Affairs, that is beginning to say, let the service provider, yes, municipality, you've got an authority, but a service provider needs to be licensed and needs to be professional, and that for me, I think is beginning to move in the right direction. If we can put credible measures to ensure that there is an oversight over those service providers that are providing, so that the key issue is how they're actually impacting on the people. So I think for me, that's a bigger issue and question that I'm asking myself, having wrestled with the local government system for so many years, but still not able to get the results that we want sustainably, which is the key. So I think that for me, responds to the whole questions of capacity and revenue generation. So that is why, if I may jump into the issue of the trading services, which Honorable Chair, you also asked to say, what is there? So what is there in the trading services is your energy, electricity, water, and solid waste. And those are the services that, in my view, are the core business that local government has got to deliver. So if they don't do that, then things are not happening. So what we have observed is that there is an overall problem. But what mostly concerns us is to see the collapse almost of these services, even in most of our metros, that actually these services are beginning to operate at deficit. So which means what they collect and what they need to buy bulk and to invest, it's actually not happening. And what we have realized is that it's not inherent in them not to be sustainable. It is actually around the management, the skills, but also the governance and the leadership, because those are the ones that actually decide on how do we deliver this and what kind of skills that we're actually putting in place. So as a result, there has been systematic, reduction, if you like, of investments for maintenance, for rehabilitation, and for expansion of these networks. And our concern is that with the metros, who have got much stronger capacity within themselves to be able to run these services in a sustainable way, that if they are not doing so, the impact on the economy, which is actually almost 60% in these areas, that is huge. And our ability to generate revenue that we need to also uplift other areas is actually at major risk here, as we already see. So that is why we have looked at this and said there is a problem here. And there must be a different way that we begin to look at this problem. And part of what we observed is that we are giving conditional grants to all these municipalities, when you look at MIG and Integrated Urban Development Grant, you look at Urban Settlement Development Grant, we are given these grants. So, and the performance is a problem. So what we are saying is that with regard, starting with the metros and the trading services, that we want to be able to design these instruments that would have much stronger incentives for performance. And that performance is really around how you structure the delivery of these services. In terms of the institutional and the governance structures, how do you ensure that they are actually properly ring-fenced so that the revenue can be properly accounted for and the spending in a most transparent way, that there's a very clear relationship between the municipality and this delivery vehicles for these services. So we are beginning to say there has to be professionalization of these services, and therefore the funding instrument needs to also demand this response from the cities, so that now even when you have got changes, the conditions are such that you cannot actually begin to continue changing or things in different directions. So we are working on this with regard to the metros, but we believe that it will also provide lessons in terms of how you strengthen the incentives within the conditional grants, because at least that is the money for national government, so that it's not as cheap as it has seemed to be, to the extent that it doesn't deliver the value that we want. So that is the work that we are looking at as part of looking at how can we get the system to improve. But I still believe that there has to be a bigger reform in that actually really look at this configuration of powers and functions and the model of delivery for these services. So the smart meters, I think Sadesh is on the line. She should be able to respond. Measures into support to improve delivery. Yes. Yeah, so the Treasury, so in terms of the emergency procurement, I do, maybe Wendy will comment on this because there is an emergency procurement that is allowed, but I think procurement is one of those areas where the organs of states tend to hide under, and that also results in from the high contestation with regard to the procurement system and in terms of who gets what. So we find that sometimes the problems are more internal and they are not necessarily created by the procurement systems itself. It can respond if the people that are running the procurement actually want to make it so. So yeah. So we do raise flag, Honorable Matava, on with regard to this underspending. That is why in every December, we write letters to the municipalities and ask them to say, what we can see that you're not spending. So tell us why we should not, stop the further transfers for this current year, so that then you don't end up misusing the money. Because I think the whole idea of not transferring all that the municipalities is not going to spend is also to avoid the money being used for other things, because that's also what we have observed. So that we do it in December, and it's always done December, January. It's always done as like a wake-up call to the municipality and to the leadership, so that even if they were not aware that actually projects are not proceeding as expected, and then therefore the changes that they can make even in terms of cash flow management, in terms of other projects that are moving in the same for the same purpose, that they can do that. So that really enables them to do more in order to ensure that there is recovery in the implementation. But of course, it still doesn't fully achieve the results, as we know that we always end up with underspending. Yeah, so the DDM, in terms of its opportunity that it can offer in flexing the muscle, I'm not sure about that, Honorable Mlenza, whether it can help in flexing the muscle, because part of the challenge is DDM is is brought within the structure where municipalities have their own powers and functions. So it's not taking away the powers and functions of municipalities, and they are very much aware in exercising those. That is why even the intervention framework has not fully worked because it is implemented within the powers and functions of municipalities, whereby we are trying to turn around the finances, but you don't actually get to have power over the budget, over the finances, as long as the council is in place. So you are there as a business rescue sort of, but with very limited powers in terms of the law. So that is one of the things that we are saying we need to kind of change in the law, so that when there is intervention, people know that yes, now there is intervention. You can't just continue business as usual, which they are able to do in exercising their powers in terms of the law at this point in time. And it becomes a bit of a challenge where there is that resistance to actually bring about the difference. So I think the objectives of DDM in terms of bringing alignment and coordination, it's noble, and it's what government needs, and it's what government has failed to actually make happen. But within the current framework of powers and functions, whether you can actually disrupt the powers and functions, I'm not sure whether you can be able to do that through DDM, Honorable Chair. So can I, Wendy, is there any, maybe you can come in, no, maybe let me say Sadesh come in on the smart meters. Sadesh, are you on the line? I hope you got the questions. Yeah.
Thanks, Memali Jeng. Honorable Chair and honorable members, thank you. I'm going to try and respond to the questions around the rollout of smart meters. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
So the rollout of smart meters and the grant that has been introduced. So the rollout mechanism that we're intending to use is the RT29 transversal tender that has been that is being finalized currently, and this RT29 tender is for the STS TID rollout. It's for the replacement of smart electricity meters. It's for the replacement of smart water meters, and it's to deal with load management in the space of municipalities. That RT29 transversal tender, it's in the final stages of procurement, and we're hoping that by the 1st of April, a panel of service providers will be available for municipalities to utilize for the intended purpose. But specifically to the grant, the smart meter grant, we want to use the panel that will be awarded to be on the RT29 as the basis for the rollout mechanism. So we're hoping to have around 6 or 7 service providers which had gone through rigorous evaluation and site inspections to ensure that meters that are being procured are locally locally manufactured. That was one of the conditions in the RT29 specification, that it is locally manufactured and not imported, as many may think. So we inspected the manufacturing plants of these service providers to ensure that that component is taken care of. And we're looking at every component of the meter, not just one small component, from the PC board to the casing to every component of it. Obviously, there are small minor components that are not manufactured in the country and are brought in, but ultimately the meter is being manufactured locally. So this grant is an indirect grant, and it'll be managed from National Treasury, and the support through this tender will be for 3 years after the meter is installed. So it's not just going in there by the service provider, installing and walking away. So there's a 3-year component of support for these meters once it's installed. And this includes training to municipal staff to manage a back office intelligence where a smart meter is required to have, as well as bringing some dignity into some of the job descriptions of meter readers to interpret the back office monitors so that the municipality can respond to any anomalies in the system. The last component requires that municipalities have a communication strategy in place to roll out the smart meter project, and this is a requirement on the tender itself, so that the municipality is not left wanting with protests from the community in the space. I hope I've covered what was intended, Malijeng. If there's anything I missed, I can...
Yeah, so let me add to the question about the flexibility in terms of how we are implementing this, if I understood that question. So the smart metering program as funded is targeting your municipalities that are in greater default, that are part of the debt relief program linked to ESCO. So that is the initial focus, and given also the money that is there. So, but it does not stop the municipalities from rolling out of their own resources the smart meters, and we do also expect that to leverage within the municipalities in terms of having a broader coverage in terms of this. So I thought I must just add on that issue that was raised by Honorable Matafa, if I understood it well. Yeah, so thanks, Sadesh. And perhaps, Wendy, you can come in on some of the issues around the local government fiscal framework and the issues that the chairperson has raised. Yeah. And any other that you want to add on, and the team. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to delegate a few of the responses, but the ones that I'll deal with is the issue raised about free basic services and also the lack, the disinvesting by companies because of lack of infrastructure. In terms of the free basic services, yes, the allocation is increasing, but the question that we need to ask is how much of that money is actually favoring the poor, and how much free basic services are actually rendered to poor households. That is an issue that really needs attention. Because currently a lot of the money that goes into the local government equitable share actually gets used towards salaries of staff rather than benefiting the poor. So what is quite important is that we focus on getting that equitable share money to be used towards free basic services towards the poor, so that we've actually got that benefit that we're actually looking for. Then with regard to the disinvestment in companies, I know it was a broader question, but I would also like to bring it back home in terms of, municipalities themselves. In terms, a number of companies disinvest in municipalities, not because of external developments, but because internal developments within the municipality, where companies just find it very, very difficult to survive because of lack of reliable municipal services, such as reliable roads, reliable water, reliable electricity. And that is, what is actually causing some companies to close, and an area that municipalities need to focus on. One of the former ministers of cooperative governance always make the point, go back to basics. And this really links back to providing municipal services reliable and ensuring that that will also ensure that companies rise. So it is in the control of municipalities to make that change. Then I know in terms of the informal or the township question, it was raised that there's severe shortcomings in municipal service delivery in those areas. And I would like, Letsepa, if you can indicate the 2 ISIP grants, what it's intended to do and what it basically targets. And Khali, if you could deal with the budgeting for gender issues in provinces. And then Silo, if you want to add anything in terms of the monitoring of conditional grants. Thank you. So Letsepa, first over to you.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks again, honorable members. So the other questions, Wendy, that are needed, perhaps to just give some more bit of details on. There was an issue around the cost of compliance that was raised by the honorable members, which is something that has actually come up in terms of the preliminary findings from the conditional grants review process. And how we will be dealing with that from that work is through the consolidation of some of the grants, especially doing away with those small grants, which really add the compliance burden and could be done away with. We really need the committee's support on that one, as I think the edge to control from national is quite high, so it'll be difficult to try and price that away from them. The review of the fiscal framework is also still underway. We have actually done quite a bit of work in terms of the scoping, what needs to be done. There's currently some work that is already underway in terms of exploring some own revenue measures there, how we can maximize some of the revenue provisions that are afforded to local government, which are currently not being used to the full extent and maximum. Municipalities are being supported in terms of alternative energy sources, and that's already bearing a fruit with a number of pilots currently being done by some municipalities. There's also the work that we are also currently scoping and doing in terms of looking at the expenditure elements, ensuring that we look at the possibility, of differentiated costs in the system. So all that work is really underway, and the committee will be briefed fully when there are results that have come up from that process. What is also then important, honorable members, that from the human settlement perspective, there's also quite a number of changes there that are being suggested, which also would have an impact in terms of how then the informal settlement upgrading projects are being undertaken. Currently, we've got two grants focusing on that one with local municipalities, which is the metros, where they are providing the services to the informal settlements in terms of I think it's in the main it's the infrastructure side in terms of providing bulk services, but also the procurement of land to ensure that where there is a need to relocate people, they are properly relocated. And then outside of the metros, we could say within the smaller municipalities, then the provinces have a grant which is already also looking at assisting in working with those municipalities to ensure that the issues of informal settlements are being addressed. Thanks.
So we didn't respond to the issue of the shift in ECD funding. I don't know if Julia is able to.
We're still busy, Marijeng. We're still busy.
Yeah? Oh, okay. All right.
And then Silo.
Good morning, Chair, members and colleagues. So on the issue of GBV, the Provincial Department of Social Development in provinces have allocations under the Victim Empowerment Program, where they support the victims of GBV in number of initiatives that they have, including the shelters that they provide for those. And also, I think there's an initiative called White Door, where the victims are being made to feel safe, to ask for assistance. So there are a number of programs that are run by Social Development. Thank you.
Bongani?
Yes, thanks, Wendy. So I'm going to be responding to 3 questions that the chairperson asked. The first one was about clarity on slide 10 to indicate whether for those reductions and subtractions that are shown there, what is the net effect? So in terms of the additions that
You are muted, Bongani. I can't hear you. Or is it me?
and the net effect.
It's back now.
Yes, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I will start. I thought I was audible all this time. So I was saying, Chair, I'm responding to the question you asked about clarity in terms of slide number 10, to say that in terms of the additions that and subtraction, you wanted to know what is the net effect. So I was indicating that in terms of the additions that were made to the provincial equitable share, 102 billion was added. And then in terms of the reductions, it was 62 billion. And the net effect is 40 billion. And that's as the summary of that is shown on slide 12. But in terms of the total additions that were made, it is 105 billion. And this includes about close to 4 billion that was made to the conditional grants in terms of the COE carry-through costs. So that is in terms of the clarity with regard to slide number 10. The other question was asked in terms of what is the impact of the shift in the ECD. So to the allocations to the provinces, there is no impact because that funding that was added in the 2023 budget was not allocated to any province. It was left unallocated. So that funding is being shifted to the National Department of Basic Education. And this is with the aim of us not only using money from the fiscus, but also getting co-funding from the private sector that want to pay for the results. Often we have been paying for outputs for most part, but now the aim is to pay for the results, whereby now there will be predetermined and agreed results across the country that will be paid for when those are achieved. And even in terms of the school nutrition, it's a pilot. And the reason why we are moving it to national is because we are aware that for some of this ECD, the setup is informal, and we sort of need to find the mechanisms of how best to sort of implement this nutrition program in those settings, whereby currently the rigidity in the framework may not necessarily allow for that flexibility. That is why the pilot, when it's being undertaken, is being undertaken at the national, so that we can better establish the modalities of being able to deliver that program. And the last question was about the conditionally approved allocations for the Western Cape, to say the amounts were not shown. Just to indicate, if Western Cape Department of Basic Education meets the set conditions, in the adjustment budget, they will get an allocation of 250 million. And then in the next financial year, they will get 1 billion, and in the outer year, it's 1.25 billion. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I've responded to those 3 questions that you have asked.
Okay, no, thank you very much. I don't know if there's anybody else still want to, but I want to add on one question from Honorable Memezi on the complaints around reporting. That is one of the things that municipality staff are saying we are keeping them busy with reporting. I do want to say that in our view, that is really just an excuse, especially since the era of institutionalizing M-score, Municipal Standard Charter of Account, which came also as a major systems reform that brings a very much integration from planning, budgeting, and reporting seamlessly. And that if municipalities implement that well, which we are still in the process of getting a lot of them come in, it's just the press of button that you will actually be doing in order to generate the reports. So we have really taken away paper out of reporting through the M-score. We have also worked with the Department of Cooperative Governance and other sectors in actually streamlining the reporting on non-performance, which we have issued Circular 88 that looks at reporting on non-performance per sector for water, for electricity, but in a much sharper defined indicators that make sure that there is no duplication, but that this information can then be accessible to everyone, States SA, Reserve Bank, everyone that would need the information, so that you don't have a situation where each one of this tumble down to municipality to request information in this format and that format, which is almost the same information, but that would be required in different formats by different stakeholders. So we have taken that out. So we are in the process of also institutionalizing, automating that. So it must become a very easy single report that anybody of whoever wants the report, the information would be able to do so. So the only challenge would be the extent to which municipalities are embracing this, because it does bring more transparency, it does bring more controls, it does bring more accountability in the system. So the desire sometimes to work outside of the system is something that we are also still wrestling with some municipalities in order to avoid this controls that actually will enable them even to make it very easy for them to comply with the auditing requirements. So thanks, Chair. So Dr. Modise, I think maybe you can come through on some of the... Okay, sorry. Thanks.
All right. Okay, thanks. I hope that I'm audible. Good day to the Honorable Chair and to the members. I'm going to respond to the issue around monitoring of the conditional grant with specific purpose on, with specific focus on local government. But I think the DDG has already touched base on that. But what I wanted to say is that, because how the question was raised is that, what is the role of Treasury to the extent that this money ultimately reverts to the National Revenue Fund? So the chair was saying the money in any event gets back to you. So what is your role? I think what we would like to say is that by the time the conditional grants revert to the National Revenue Fund, Treasury does that as a very last resort. There would have been a lot of process and consultations between ourselves within municipalities, but also in consultation with the sector departments that are responsible for administering these grants. Now, from where we're sitting as National Treasury, the understanding has always been that money that gets transferred is transferred to projects that are ready. Because then we facilitate a process of the payment schedule, which in itself says that you transfer on projects that are available for implementation. And that is also informed by the budget. Our understanding is that councils should adopt a budget that are informed by ready projects. Sometimes it's not always the case. but that is at least the starting point. And we're saying with that, with the sector leaders that we work jointly with, that as part of their role to approve and consider ready projects, they should make sure that the cash flow that they give to us is aligned to that. Now, Honorable Chair, I just want to give, in terms of the monitoring, our understanding is always to say that the issue of capacity must always be looked closely with competency and effort. And this is where, in our view, this thing is lacking with our municipalities. You need to have a council that has a will in order to support their administration. And by so saying, and I want to give few examples by just mentioning few municipalities. In the Northwest province, a municipality like JP Max has been struggling with appointing their MMs and CFOs. What government then did was to then second from provincial treasury an official who has been operating from finance and who has been supporting JP Max. As we sit now, JP Max has absorbed that official and is the MM, and that official is contributing to support the municipality, and there's a huge improvement. In terms of a municipality in Limpopo, Mopani District Municipality, which is one of the bigger municipalities in terms of resource allocation in the country, that municipality has for many years been struggling to spend the money on conditional grants, and they've been losing. So what we have done together with COCTA was to then say, as part of the framework of the MIG, which provides for up to 5% of the grant to be utilized for support, we've allowed them that they can use, at least for the first 2 years, they can go and outsource support in order to institute and establish a PMU unit, and over time get to absorb that support. And as this external support comes to the municipality, then they can build their own capacity. The municipality is beginning to do well and can see the results. In Mpumalanga, a local municipality called Treasury, what they've done, because they've also been struggling, they've then gone into an agreement with their district, Ehlanzeni district, where they've entered into a service level agreement to say, come help us as a district in order to roll out and not to lose money. Tabachewu is a water service authority municipality, but also a WSP. Now, Ehlanzeni has come through to support them. We're seeing improvement in that regard. However, and this is where I spoke about effort, that is not being seen across the country. In the Free State, we're struggling to get locals to agree with their district for support. So what I'm responding to is that it takes a bit of effort from all of us to ensure that the issue of monitoring and support is being realized. And I think maybe I should stop there. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, so I think, all right, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, IJAB team. So, honorable members and chairperson, just quickly from the public finance, I think the first one issue that was raised across would be the underspending. And chairpersons and honorable members, as much as Treasury will do the in-year monitoring, we will try and shift the funds during the course of the year through environment and also through the MTBPS. I think what is critical, and that is something that we are working on, but it doesn't seem to be as easy, would be proper planning by the departments. Planning is very critical. What tends to happen is that departments will have projects, will have programs, and they request funding for those programs, but the planning to execute and implement those programs tends to be what result mostly in underspending. So, for example, in the case of DPWI, the issue there was the adherence to some of the regulations that exist. You would expect the department to be, to be ready to, because they've been in this thing for long. But you find that it's new people in the EPWP who are applying, and there's always teething issues. So I think for us, the critical part would be the planning. And if the departments and the other service or stakeholders can plan accordingly, and then the understanding will be lesser. Of course, Chairperson and honorable members, here we're talking about understanding that we don't want, which is understanding that is not because of efficiency improvements in the system. But I think what we're trying to do now is to figure out a mechanism of shifting funds, because if other departments are ready, they've planned accordingly, but they have insufficient funds, consideration should be made. So I think the budget process itself, we're working towards a process that tends to be flexible within the confines of the law, of course. And then the issue of why the second adjustments appropriation bill and why we didn't see these issues before. Chairpersons and honorable members, I think what is key here is that this is the first time we have had to reduce budgets during the course of the year, and the magnitude of the reductions was also quite large. So we're looking at 22 billion. The manner in which we did this was one, in choose cost containment guidelines, and we asked the departments to implement those guidelines. At the time of the MTBPS, we were a bit uncertain on how much those guidelines are going to result in savings, and how much those guidelines, or how much departments can absorb. And as a result, we worked on estimates, and some of the estimates were such that the reductions were higher than what the institutions could absorb. And we're looking at smaller amounts. If you look at the total of what we're adjusting is about 470 million in a budget of close to 2 trillion. So it's a small amount of money, but the reason why we're bringing it to your attention is that we don't want to unnecessarily cause unauthorized expenditure, especially for those entities and departments that we've assessed and we've looked at the cost containment, what they've implemented, their ability to absorb, and what they have done to try and remain within the system. So that's why we did have a side of the numbers at the time of the MTBS, but at the end it was an estimate. Then the question on the SONA announcement, Chairperson, we are coming back to the committee to present on the 2024 appropriation bill. I'm sorry, and the SONA announcements and commitments will be presented. Or that bill is the appropriation for the 2024 year, and it will have more information than now. What we're doing now with the adjustment, we're just looking at the 2023-24 year, and that won't have the SONA commitments. Most of the SONA commitments are for next year and going forward. So the appropriation bill will definitely have proposed funding for most of the commitments that are in the SONA. And then the detailed question on the Commission for Gender Equality, I think the first thing I must do is to just break down the 13 million. So the 13 million is divided into two. The first 8 million is proposed to be allocated to the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, and the 5 million proposed to be allocated to the Commission itself. And basically what the Commission will have to do with this 5 million is to look at the compensation pressures, and whether it's national or the provincial offices, and deal with the pressures that exist in the system. The issue of vote 12, so that would be, I'm just getting my slides quickly. That would be Public Service Commission. So here, Chairperson and honorable members, the 12 million that we propose in Parliament to consider is basically augmenting the allocations for the compensation of employees. So when the wage agreement was reached, the outcome was, of course, higher than what the Commission budgeted for, and as a result, they are short in terms of paying for compensation of employees. They did try to freeze the positions that existed, but even with freezing the positions, they still on a negative. So they've requested, the money is basically requested for closing the gap that is caused by the wage agreement, but also because they've frozen posts for so long, they're starting to lose critical skills. And so this amount is going to assist them to fund the gap, but also to fill some of the critical vacancies that they have in the system. Chairperson, I think that was from Public Finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahoshi.
Yes, thank you. Chair, I want to start by making an appeal as well from ALM to ask the committee indulgence in prioritizing the gold and foreign exchange contingency reserve bill. As you would have seen in Chapter 7 of the budget review, we have apportioned the resources that will be coming from the account towards reducing government's borrowing requirements for the next financial year. So it's quite important for us to be able to do that in order to provide certainty to our lenders and the market in particular in terms of how the government's borrowing requirement would look like. So it's quite, so the passing of the bill will help us in terms of managing our finances as the National Treasury. And what year was the account in a deficit? Indeed, this is not the first time we find ourselves in this situation. In 2002, the GFECRA was in a deficit with an amount of 28 billion. And at that time, there was an agreement between the minister and the governor of the SARB that the National Treasury or the government will deposit funds into the GFECRA to the tune of that 28 billion. And that was done in installments of about 7 billion per annum. And hence, this is the reason why we have decided this time to advise the minister and the governor to have a settlement agreement that allows them that on an annual basis, once the determination of the balance on the account has been made, then a decision can be made whether there is a settlement that is in favor of the Treasury or not. Of course, we don't expect that the balances will be this high going forward because since 2003 up to now, the balance has grown to close to 500 billion. But once we normalize this through the agreement, we expect the annual settlements to be much lower than this. And also, with regard to the second question was on the risks facing this account and the cost of this account to the National Treasury. I will ask Wessel Moolman to take these questions. Thank you. Wessel?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, regarding the cost, the Reserve Bank will basically fund the disbursement to National Treasury through the use of excess bank reserves. That excess bank reserves is being, the SARB will be paying the repo rate on that. That is at the moment 8.25% on that, and that translates into the cost on the GFECRA, but those costs won't be paid directly as part of government's debt service costs that will be covered actually by the contingency reserve buffer, the 100 billion as per the current proposed arrangement that we're setting in place between the SARB and National Treasury. Thank you.
Thank you, Vessel. Chair, there's a question that Honorable Sheikh Imam asked about the implications of withdrawing these funds and whether there's any risk. I think what we want to assure the committee is, first, the structure of the framework, how we are designing it with the SARB, is to assure the SARB that the policy solvency is sacrosanct to us. So we will not dig into the country's reserve in order to realize funds for use by government. So for us, the two main principles is to ensure that we honor our obligations should this account ever be in a deficit. And this legislation allows us to do that. And secondly, that we leave sufficient funds in the buffer, the contingency buffer, to ensure that should there be any negative in the GFECRA, the second line of defense for the SARB is the contingency reserve account, which will then provide that protection against any currency volatility. So we believe that the way that we have structured the framework provides, in fact, sufficient protection for the account. However, should it ever go into a deficit, the legislation also allows us to honor our obligations in order to protect the SARB solvency. So we feel confident that the measures that we put in place are sufficient, and we will be reporting this in the budget review and in our financial statements on an annual basis. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no, thank you very much, colleagues. Chairperson, over to you. Yeah.
Ms. Mary Jane, and the team, Mampo, Mahoshi, thank you very much, Bogoto, for leading National Treasury team today as we're interacting. Thank you very much. I think the issues, obvious, there are issues which will forever be hanging, for instance, as to how we better make sure that there is better service delivery at this level. We also acknowledge the fact that you can, as National Treasury and national government, do so much. At the end of the day, people who are employed to do this work must be doing their work. The chances are, Mary Jane, this is our last engagement with your team as the Standing Committee on Appropriations in the 6th administration. So I've just requested the oral members who are on the platform, just indicated to me those who would like to say something to National Treasury. Right, oral members, I'm listening.
Sheikh Imam, I've got my hand.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, any other member who would like to come in? I'm listening. Okay. Honorable Sheikh, please come in.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Yeah, I just thought I wanted to address a few things with National Treasury. First of all, thank you very much for your presentation today and always being available for the committee. However, some of my concerns, which I believe that we should take cognizance of and see how we could do things differently. One is, I believe that a lot of emphasis in the country is being put on revenue collection on those already small percentage of taxpayers that pay taxes in this country. whereas there's billions of rands that is unclaimed or unaccounted for, not collected, particularly from foreign nationals in the country. And very importantly, from smaller businesses or self-employment, small institutions and organizations. And there is a lot of loopholes in the system, in my view. And that is why particularly foreigners are finding South Africa a haven, economic haven. And that's why all of them are coming here, which is also impacting on our socioeconomic conditions and, well, various other factors. So I'd like to plead with you to look at this revenue collection. I believe you can really collect a lot more revenue, particularly from those that have not been compliant. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I know that and some of these things may not necessarily fall directly under your mandate, or you may not have the authority to do much about it. And one of them is that if you look at the different spheres of government and the allocations that are going there, and you obviously, through the reports from Auditor Generals and various others, are identifying a lot of the problems, the capacity of people to be able to do it, even from a political perspective. You know, we have mayors that I think some of them can't even read and write, from what I've been told. You know, maybe you at some stage need to guide us and tell us some of the problems that are existing, that you are identifying, that we need to address. The issue of that corruption, you know, you're not taking it seriously, despite knowing we're not getting value from it. I mean, look at the response you gave me, the last one, to say it's supposed to be reported, but it's not. Consequences, nothing. What are we going to do about it? Now, I know your hands are tied to some extent. Perhaps we need to look at legislation to give more powers to other structures like the Auditor General and things. I know we amended it, but not good enough. You know, I don't know what mechanisms you got to ensure to the length and breadth of this country there's some kind of pricing standardization. Because I can tell you, I was told by one councillor that his mayor gives every contract to the highest bidder, and the councillor has no petrol to even move around. This is how bad the situation is on the ground. Now, the other thing is this: is there any chance we can look at some of the models that we have, like in Germany, for instance, Chair, where I visited on an educational tour, where businesses, like I give you a good example, eThekwini, has some of the most successful businesses. Should local government not be investing in these businesses so that when they get returns, that added returns that they're going to get over and above what national government is giving them and whatever they generate revenue, through this way, they might be able to develop these areas a lot more. There are very successful businesses, Toyota, South Africa, the refineries, like taking it. A lot of these things, perhaps we need to look at them to become more self-sufficient. Then the other thing is on the allocations that we are giving. Tell me honestly, we've got
Honorable
a brief.
Sheikh, Honorable Sheikh.
Yeah.
Honorable Sheikh.
Last one.
Yeah.
Okay. The last one is not a good one. We have three-sphere government. We like moving into a fourth-tier government. Don't you think we should cut on some of this administration and perhaps reduce one or the local, bring it to district, the national level, and a lot more money can go to making a difference in the people's life? I'd like you to think about some of these things and see what we could do in the future. But thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Sheikh. I know there are many issues that they've loved to address. Who's next to come in?
Oh, it's me, Kaiso, Honorable Chair.
Please come in, Honorable Kaiso.
Yes, Chair. No, would like to really appreciate to having had interaction with this Department of Treasury over the past 5 years. I mean, we have learned a lot and gained some experience over these past years as to how Treasury, works with this committee. And we think generally you committed yourself to every time when we we call you to respond positively to come to our meetings. But what one I would like to say, despite really good preparations, but generally what one would assess is to the impact of the work that has been delivered at the end of the day by the Office of Treasury doing its work, trying to reach out to the commitment that the government has done and turn that into a budgetary elements that will turn the lives of our people into a better situation. At some stage, one would feel that now you often look at the reasons as to how this one should not go over a principle of a policy. I can make a number of examples, particularly the ones which are of policy nature. Of course, they might not need this platform, but around the issues of Reserve Bank, Treasury look to be much more. You look to be much more reserved around it. For particular reasons, I would not know, but this is one experience that one will pick up. That now looking at many reasons as to why some of the things should not be implemented, then it impedes you to reach out to the policy of the government, because primarily, if you want to realize the policy of the government, then you actually have to translate them into figures as you do, and then it would produce a quality, work. But in the absence of how is that being translated policy into figures, then it becomes a problem. But I think if you strive to do it in that way, you would really realize the quality of the work of Treasury in terms of what the government of the day wants to achieve tomorrow. It should not be a problem. But other than that, I think you've been doing, a quite sterling work in terms of presentations and information, quality information that you produce to assist the committee. We really appreciate your work. So thank you very much and wish you good luck. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kaiso. Do I have any honorable member? Okay. I think that was the last honorable member. Honorable members, our support staff, everybody on the platform, allow me on behalf of the committee to extend our word of appreciation to this team which we have always engaged with since the start of the 6th administration, led by Madi Jeng and Dr. Mampo in the past, for the past 5 years, and other colleagues who always come and supported them. It's very appreciated. I know that most of the time it's you who get whipped for some of the failures of government, be it national, provincial, or local government, especially as you would see that the question of underspending remains a sore point. The question of wasteful and fruitless expenditure, again, the money that we allocate, would like it to be used properly, efficiently, and for the purpose of what they're supposed to be used for. The question of value for money, which Honorable Sheikh always raise, and that's very important that we get all those things. So I'm saying you always get hammered on those things, but we are fully aware that it's not you are directly responsible for these things, but you interact with this committee. So our expectation is that you go to your colleagues and you say, look, this is what is happening, and so on. We go to the committee on your behalf to go and defend the budget. So it's important that, again, having defended the budget, it's important that we should see what we get out of that budget. also, I think I can't agree more with Mary Jane when she says we always try to create a problem that there's a problem. The problem is money in South Africa. Yes, we are under a serious we've got a serious fiscal challenge, but it's not always money. You wouldn't expect in a government which complains about money or fiscal consolidation for people to bring back money, but that they do. So the budget and the money allocation, it's as they would say, a necessary but not sufficient condition for ensuring a service delivery. At the end of the day, those who are supposed to deliver services must use money for that. So we just want to say that at all times we have been there to assist the committee to execute its responsibilities, and we really appreciate your support. You know that as we deal with this thing, we as politicians, we come and go. You are the constant in this equation. So we hope that the knowledge and the things that we have raised in this administration will be able to carry them forward. Now that we are dealing with the Division of Revenue Bill, I'm sure I would have said that with other colleagues from the department, but especially around the challenges of local government. Madijeng, you, from where I'm seated, having interacted with you, I can say that without any equivocation, that I think you are the most experienced and knowledgeable civil servant when it comes to local government, its challenges. And when you interact with us, you always say, I think we should do this. And so I think at one stage, this is the challenge that the committee is living with you. We need a book from you, which will guide future generations so that they don't start from scratch, about how to run a local government, the do's and the don'ts, and perhaps how to collapse local government. You have enough experience there, and I think you owe South Africa a book. With those a few words from ourselves, all of the best, colleagues. We've got 3 bills. We'll try our best from our side that before Parliament rises, that we pass those bills. Yeah, I think that's where we leave it. I see a hand. So this is a legacy hand, I suppose. Yeah, that's honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, Team Treasury, members of the media. This takes care of this agenda item. You may remain, but you are excused to also leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Bye, everybody.
Ciao, 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 ciao. Right. Maricheng, are you gone? I'm sure she is. Next agenda item, Mashile.
Yes, Chair, we are about to consider and adopt the 2023 annual report of the committee.
Thank you, Mashile. Who's taking us through that report? The report was sent to us. Who's taking us through?
I will be.
Okay, please do that.
Is it clear?
Yes,
Is
yes,
it
yeah. Yes, it is. We can see it, yeah.
Okay, let me try to. I want to
So,
enlarge it.
so you're not going to be reading the document, you'll just be taking us through it, right?
Yeah, through the page 1.
Go. Let's go. Let's go. Just wait. Just wait.
Okay.
Let's see on the members. You must also okay. Right. Go. Oh, just hold there.
Yes.
Just go to the previous page. Okay, you see you've got Mr. Murolong as an alternate, ne?
Yes.
No, it is longer. Just say because he was there, but he was an alternate.
Yes.
I don't know how you get that because perhaps he resigned from the committee or something like that, or he got redeployed. Ne? So you see.
Yeah, should I write in brackets redeployed or?
Yeah, I think do that. Yeah.
Chairperson?
Yebo.
Why don't we say in brackets till? Just say till 2023.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Without getting into what happened. I'm suggesting, Chair.
Yeah, that's
till
fine.
20. Till 20.
You'll get the date.
Yeah.
When you was when
Oh
was,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just write NB. I'll follow it up.
Yeah. But again, there should be Tipu.
Okay, there should be
Again.
okay, yeah. Then as well.
Yeah, same thing.
Till 2020.
Same thing like Kenny. Why do you want to write it down? We'll go and check that.
Okay, all right, okay.
But there's also remind me, all members, when we started, there was also Honorable
Clara.
Okay, there's also Honorable Clara.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. There was also Honorable Joseph.
Honorable Joseph, that was before I came from which party?
No. Let's see. So no. I'm lying. I think Tichale and Peters is right because we're talking about the year. It's not just go down. Yeah. No. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. That one's correct. Okay. Sure.
Chairperson, are there no members of the EFF in the platform? If you can follow up in the sidelines, because I think there has been some changes, but I'm not sure.
No, there have been some changes, but this is an annual report just for last year. So there was no change last year. In fact, that's what I wanted to address initially, and I remember that their changes were before the year under review.
Okay, no, thanks, Chair. I get you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, Chair. Thanks.
Okay. Let's go. And you are still going to correct your paragraphing, for instance. You can't have bills referred to the committee and then you. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Are you fine?
Yeah, let's go. We're dealing with the bills that we passed last year, is it not so here?
Yes.
Yeah. Just say oversight, take out trips, oversight.
Oversight.
Right. But Mashile,
Yes,
those
Chair.
where you saying non-applicable and so on, where there's nothing, must you really write? Okay, just go down and come back.
Okay. All right. All right.
Since you're saying budget, vote, fiscal framework consideration. Whoa.
Yes. Should I go up?
Yeah, go up.
Up, ne?
Image up. Number 6.
Okay.
Something
Number
like budget.
6.
Yeah,
Okay.
budget,
Yes.
vote, fiscal framework consideration. Not up
Yes.
to the committee. So why are we even having it there?
Or should I remove that one?
Remove what's not applicable rather than having a report that's not applicable. I think let's just take out all that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think is as take out up to 6. Take out is as ends on take out 6 is 6.
Yeah. Good. Are you fine, Chair?
Yeah, that's fine. Where's okay, let's go. Okay,
the
go.
same will apply.
Same here.
Right. Same, yeah. What I'll do.
I'll delete konke lapho 8 kuzayishintsha 9. Konke onye kuzoyishintsha ngezansi.
Okay. Okay. And
what is it now? What is it now? Just go up.
Up like this.
Why now you're having 6, 7? Okay. 6, 9.
7. Yeah. Yeah.
So make that 7 again. Okay. Go. Okay. Yeah.
The numbering. I will attend to the numbering from the previous one. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. The same applies here, Chair.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yes.
What say with non-applicable, just take it off.
Yeah.
Report on the things that you should report on.
This one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The chairperson's report is the first thing before you put other things. Before you put any other things, you never after you index, then the next thing which comes because you are introducing the document. You started with something else, then you put in the chairperson's.
You're referring to this one?
Yeah, I'm referring to that one. It becomes the first one. Just go
yes.
up. Just go up. Yeah, well, even before this thing. Right. Then immediately after this, then is the first thing which comes in there. Yeah?
Let me get this very clear, Chair. Are you saying that the first one is an overview of the chairperson?
Yeah.
Which is what you say should have been done. That is the way it should have been done. Or you're saying that there should be something before this?
No, but what do you have then? Just go up on page 3, from page 1 to page 3. What do you have?
Yeah, it's the summary of the key issues that we had achieved.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That should only come in after the chairperson's report.
Oh, okay. Just a question of changing them. Okay. Thank you.
Understand?
Yes, I understand. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chairpersons come in before what you are having there.
Yes. Okay, that's fine.
You don't start, then you put chairpersons over.
Okay.
Okay. Honorable members, subject to the changes that must take place, which are very minor, subject to the Secretariat having to clean the document, especially around numbering. Can I have a mover for the adoption of the report?
Yes, Chairperson, I move.
I have Honorable Honorable Lenzana moving. Second.
Kaiso seconds, Chair.
Honorable Kaiso second. So yes, sir.
Good day. As standard, the DA just reserved their right as normal. Thank you so much.
But Honorable Mare, the report is just saying what we did. Not unless say, no, this we didn't have an oversight, we didn't have these meetings and so on. But let's respect that. I'm just saying that it's quite a,
understand.
No. You still want to maintain your position of reserving.
Well, if it's serving and adopted, then that's standard. But otherwise, it's fine.
Okay, that's fine. Let's note Honorable Mare's position. So the document is the report, the annual report reflecting of what we did last year is duly adopted. Thank you, honorable members. Do I have any announcements, Machine?
Yes, before that, we still have the minutes to adopt, the one that was sent. Yes.
You see, what are the dates? First one, the date of the first one, let me just check.
It is the 22nd.
Yeah, let me just check. The minutes of the 22nd of Feb, which have been presented to us. Do I have a mover?
Marie.
Honorable Marie moves for the adoption. Seconder.
Kaiso seconds.
Honorable Kaiso seconds. Thank you. The minutes are duly adopted. Next minutes.
No, we're done.
We only had one. We only had one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have any announcements, Mr. Mashina?
Yes, sir. We are meeting next week, Tuesday on the 5th. We are meeting with the FFC to receive a presentation on the same bills that we had today at 9 o'clock.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, all members. Thank you, support staff, members of the public, media, everybody on the platform. This brings us to the end of the meeting. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Matafa.